I was watching a video, actually, I think I was watching a video or watching a news item or something like that a couple of days ago, and this person was talking about seagulls and how seagulls were a pest, and this person had said that the town they lived in was literally covered with seagulls. Literally covered with seagulls. I've heard that kind of use of the word literally a lot, you know, and quite often I get a bit annoyed by it, because clearly they do not mean it was literally covered with seagulls. If it was, it would mean that every square inch of that town had a seagull on it, so you couldn't see the pavement, you couldn't see the parks, the roads, the cars, the buildings, nothing. It was just wall-to-wall seagulls, and I don't think that's literally true. But why would they say that, and why do people use literally when they actually mean metaphorically? It was metaphorically covered in seagulls. Doesn't make sense either. I think it's because it's an attempt to reinvigorate a sleeping metaphor. I don't think it's a dead metaphor completely, but it is definitely a metaphor that's asleep when you say it was covered in seagulls. It's, I guess when someone first said that, to describe, you know, a situation in which there was a lot of some pest. This whole town's covered in rats. Yeah, I'm covered in spots. You know, whatever it was. When the first person to say that said it, it must have been quite powerful. You know, wow, covered. And you think, oh right, they don't mean it's literally covered. They meant it's metaphorically covered. But ooh, it had a real powerful effect. Because I've got this image in mind of a town covered in seagulls, or a body covered in spots. But after a lot of use, the metaphor is kind of dozed off and it's not used, and we know it's not literal. It never even occurs to us to think it's literal anymore. When someone says, my face was covered in spots, that image of a person's face covered in spots doesn't actually emerge. We know it just means, I had quite a few spots on my face, because it's gone to sleep. So I think when someone is saying it was literally covered in spots, they're trying to wake the metaphor up. Or if they're saying the town is literally covered in seagulls, it's an attempt to wake it up a bit. So look, think about it literally for a minute. Look, imagine a town covered in seagulls. Imagine how you'd feel if every square inch of this town was covered in seagulls. Imagine my face literally covered in spots. Okay, now forget it. But keep the feeling of that, because it's appalling, isn't it? Wow, you're supposed to be disturbed by that. I think that's what's going on with that. So even though it's irritating, or at least it's irritating to me because it's inaccurate, I can kind of understand the motivation. They're trying to poke the metaphor a bit, wake it up in the person's mind, so that it functions again. Actually, I like the word literal generally, actually. I was thinking about this morning. Littoral, because there's another meaning of word, well, another spelling of the word literal, Littoral, something, littoral, which is that the littoral is that kind of no man's land between the sea and the shore, the bit that's covered at high tide and exposed at low tide. That's called the littoral. So sometimes it's land and sometimes it's sea, and if you map the land at a certain time of day, then that includes the littoral. And if you map the ocean at a certain time of day, then that same patch of space is mapped as ocean. So it's and you have to be careful which map you use when you're talking about the littoral. I don't know how that. I mean, there's no, as far as I know, no etymological relationship between literal and littoral. But it'd be interesting to think what that meant. The town was literally covered with seagulls, which I guess means if you think of it one way, using one mental map, then it's covered. If you think of it another way, it's not really covered at all. It's exposed, and you can walk on it. Isn't that right, guy? Oh, it looks like he's smiling, my dog, but he's not. It's not. Dogs can't smile. It's just the shape of his face. Isn't that right, guy?